And that's enough of that, because if we played,
that's the one. That's the one.
If we played any more of that music, we'd be nicked.
That's our forever intro.
We can't, because somebody somewhere will be after us for copyright.
That's our forever intro until somebody comes after us. There you go. Do
you want to see it again?
Yeah, God, yes.
That's enough of that.
God, that's made me, considering how shocking I feel this week, that has cheered me right up.
I thought it would. I was going to be very disappointed if we weren't going to do a show tonight, given how much hard work I put into that.
I will be inwardly giggling for the whole show now.
Yeah. For those of you wondering what on earth that's a reference to, that's a particular 70s, a 1970s policeman television series called The Sweeney. About
eventually taken off air for being excessively violent, and
it was brilliant stuff. Yeah. Anyway, hey everybody, welcome to tonight's going to be a truncated show. We have had nothing but glitches tonight. Facebook has been playing up. Messenger has been playing up, because usually I send Drew the link to the show by about 7 o'clock. I sent it tonight, and I kept thinking, he's not here. Where is he? And then I checked on Messenger, and it hadn't gone. And
ironically, I was sat here from 7 o'clock to past, going, well, where's the link? What's happening? Are we doing it tonight? Are we not?
Excuse me. Then I sent it to you on Facebook, and then I sent it to you again, and it was just like, and no, Facebook. Every time I went to send the thing on Facebook, it wouldn't go. And then when we finally got on the air, then the sound wasn't working correctly. So apart from that, portents well for the weekend, doesn't it?
Yes. Well. Anyway,
hello everybody. Yeah, onwards. So what have you been up to this week, apart from sitting there wondering where I've been for 30 minutes?
Well, as I've just previously alluded to, I feel quite shocking this week.
Okay.
I just really under the weather, not feeling well at all. Nothing, one of those non-specific type things. You know what I mean? You can't really, I can't say it's a cold. I can't say it. I'm just feeling cruddy. So it's been a lot of sorry,
rundown.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of sort of coming home from work at 2 o'clock and then being in bed by sort of 3 till sort of mid-evening sort of thing, and then getting up and pottering about for a couple of hours, and then just thinking, I'll just have a bath and go to bed again. And it's just one of those, just one of those rundown things that occasionally happens, but it just leaves you feeling incredibly under the weather sort of thing. But which means that in terms of projects, ongoing projects, things have carried on crawling, shall we say? So if we go to the, we're actually starting to sort of get into the end game here. I have to say that final coat of VMS varnish, I hope you can see the way that's gone down so beautifully. We've got this flat finish with just a slight hint of edge on it. And one thing I've been experimenting in recent weeks with just thinning VMS a little bit and seeing what happens and all the rest of it. All I could say is don't do it. Adding any kind of thinner, if you thin it with like Mr. Color leveling thinner, it turns the satin incredibly dull, flat, sort of just this side of frosty. If you try IPA, doesn't work, and water just turns it into a kind of a grainy finish when it goes down. So it's kind of reinforced that when these VMS varnishes were released, everybody was saying don't thin them, spray them straight from the bottle, and it's exactly right. That's a coat of satin straight from the bottle, and I hope people agree that the finish is just pretty spectacular.
Yeah, because obviously I think we learned about this from Uncle Night Shift himself, Martin Kovac, and I've yet to try it. I mean, I'd be interested to know where you're getting it from, because every time I go to their UK shop, the satin one isn't in stock for some reason.
All right, because I ordered another two bottles of it last month.
That's probably why I can't get any then.
So,
But the thing, I agree with you in that an absolute dead flat finish on aircraft. Well, actually, I think on aircraft and tanks just kills it completely.
yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. So that to me is pretty much a universally great flat finish.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, basically, the initial advice is right. Don't thin it. Just do not thin it.
Let it level off itself.
It levels off itself and dries in about half an hour. But you can see, we've got all the undercarriage on and all the stores are on it now, so it's just ready to, I need to paint the ejector seat and do some weathering on it. But other than that, I think I keep picking it up and looking at the finish, because it's one of those finishes that's just come out so well in the end.
Mm-hmm.
That you keep coming back to it and picking it up and sort of looking at it yourself and thinking, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. Because I did apply some VMS earlier this week, and I thinned it with water just to see if it went down any thinner, and it just went down terribly. It just had this really weird grainy sort of finish that I last got with Galeria when I tried to poorly thin that a few years ago. Galeria, whatever. And putting a coat of and it's quite a thin coat of the actual unthinned stuff over the top, just enough for it to appear wet on the surface, and it's given this beautiful finish. And the tanks haven't been varnished at all. So,
quick question: are you ordering it from Scale Model Shop?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm here now. Oh, look at that! They've actually got some. In stock. So one. View basket. As I'm just doing. Don't mind me, folks. I'm just doing some shopping while we're online here. So that's two things in that. So yeah.
So yeah, after the sort of experimenting with thinning it and stuff, it's clear that the actual the initial advice to not thin it is just dead right, and it's just it's gone back to being, after a couple of weeks of having one or two little issues with it caused by me messing around with it. It's gone back to being basically the best flat I've ever encountered in any medium whatsoever.
Have you tried the flat varnish they do?
Yes.
Would you recommend getting it?
I would recommend getting it as something which you can use to shift other colours. It's like the gloss. The VMS gloss varnish is not very good as a gloss varnish, but for shifting. No. Sort of, if I wanted to shift this satin a bit more towards the gloss, you can chuck a bit in.
Right.
So I'd recommend having all three. But for most of what we do, the satin is going to be the core. Like, I've got 3 bottles of the satin and one each of the other 2.
Right.
Just because I'll never be using the gloss or the matte on its own. They'll always be used. Steve Moores there was asking what base is it. The base paint, Steve, is MRP. It's MRP for the main part, and stuff like the details and the triangles and the national insignia that were sprayed as well. That was all done with Mr. Colour. Actual black is, in actual fact, is number 40, Mr. Colour number 40, which is German grey. But as you can see, it's it's all but black. It's a really nice scale black. And the yellow is insignia yellow, Mr. Colour insignia yellow over a pink primer. So all of the national insignia, all of the triangles, and the tail numbers, they've all been masked and sprayed. Solvent. Sorry, Dave. Dave Fleming said solvent. Do you mean solvent or solvent on VMS? Sorry, Dave. I don't quite understand.
I think he's asking what is the VMS varnish? What's it? What type of?
It's a water based. It's a water based acrylic. It's
right.
But I tend to find that for a long time now, I've preferred water based flat finishes. It's about the only water based acrylic I like to put through an airbrush, if you like. So yeah, but yeah, it's water based. It's I don't know, it's not massively expensive. It's certainly more expensive to compared to Galeria or stuff like that. But I think it's really good. Well, the finish justifies the expense, if you like. And you're still going to get probably a dozen models of this size out of a bottle of it. So I think it's great. I think it's great value and well worth it. So yeah, VMS is the go-to. So,
oh dear, I've just spent £20 on some varnishes.
Yeah.
See,
well, at least they're in stock, so you know it's
yeah.
it's hold up the bottle, bloody hell, Mike.
Language, Timothy. Yeah, and also the thing, because this is the thing that Martin Kovac says on Night Shift channel, is that you've got to trust it to level.
Yes, just you absolutely have to
put it on wet.
And that's the thing, is that I was just playing around with some testing, doing different thinning it with different stuff just to see what would happen. And it's just kind of reinforcing the fact that you don't thin it. There's absolutely no reason whatsoever to thin it. Assuming best not to go near it afterwards with any oil washes. No, oil washes are fine because it's an acrylic, so oil washes won't lift an acrylic. The only stuff that you don't, the only stuff I've ever used where I wouldn't go near, I don't like to go near it with oil washes if I'm using an enamel paint in it.
Excuse me.
And I haven't done that for 20 years. So,
yeah.
But yeah,
to be honest, again, we're talking about Martin Kovac here. If you head over to Night Shift Modeler on YouTube, Martin uses the VMS varnish all the time, and he's slapping oils, enamels, everything on top of them. So it's not really a, it's not really a
yeah. No, I mean, for the most part, the paints we use these days for most of our general finishes, even the water-based acrylics, the lacquer acrylics, and stuff like that, they're all fine with oil washes. They're all absolutely brilliant with it, so it's not a problem. Like I say, if you use enamels and you don't let them cure before you try it, then you're going to start running into problems.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, I mean, oils are my chosen wash anyway, so I always have been. It's one of those quite amusing things was watching Martin just recently get into oils and say he's really starting to love using oils, and I'm like, yeah, welcome to 1995, Martin. How did one of the world's best modelers only just?
I actually like thinning the oil brushes down and using them for washes.
I've tried more or less every oil that you can get, and I still think the artist grade Winsor & Newtons are the best. They are still the best.
Damien Mullen says 18 quid down watching you fellas, ha ha. Yeah,
there's another couple of quid's commission for us then.
Yeah, it's because we're influencers, aren't we? And Dave Fleming says Starship Filth paid promo coming up.
It's the best.
We've done that joke. Move on.
It's just the best. It's just you can get there very easily by mixing white, brown, and Payne's grey. You get something that is virtually Starship Filth, but just having it in a bottle, it's really easy.
Without being kind of like Mr. Pedantic here, it's actually Starship Filth, not Starship. Starship Filth. There's a T in there. Starship.
Is there?
Yeah. Starship Filth. Yeah.
Well, I'll go to the foot of my bed.
Absolutely. And Steve Moore says, I've tried the Flory clay washes and now I'm hooked on the flexibility. If it goes wrong, being able to mix them too. Yeah, I'm not really.
I've got a few here and I've used them and I kind of, they're okay. I like them, but there's something, especially because, controversy corner, because I like to gloss before I add a wash.
No. Yes.
Polishing the oil paint away, the excess oil paint away from over the gloss finish, just also polishes the gloss slightly, makes the gloss even slightly shinier, if you like.
Mike Reeves asks, is
No.
VMS Vallejo, sorry, my
No.
compressor for casting? No, it's not Mike. No.
No, it's VMS is a Polish company. They do a massive range of finishing products now. All things like anti-slip coating for tanks and stuff like that, and stuff for manipulating paper and all sorts of varnishes, and anodizing stuff. Yeah.
Oh, I've just done an order, Drew. Don't start giving me more things that I want to go and buy. No,
John,
stop. Just stop now.
John, have you not got any of the tank texturing stuff yet?
No, because I don't do tank texturing. So, talking of oils,
You would if you had this.
I'd have to be building tanks somewhere. I'm not building anything. I've just lost my mojo, man. Just
You've
going to
lost
say,
your mojo.
I lost my mojo, but it'll come back this weekend. Talking of oil paints here.
There you go. Yeah, Windsor and Newton, burnt umber. I use burnt umber and Payne's Grey is 99% of my washing. Winton, don't use Winton for oil washes.
Oh well, I bought that ages ago. So
I will use Winton. The Winton is like the student grade stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as quite as fine, and it tends to break up into particulate matter in thinners rather than fully breaking down fully.
Yeah, that would explain why I've not got on with it. Now, kind of like not a competition for the folks tonight, but let's just see who can be the first to guess how old this tube of oil paint is. Give me a year. When did I buy this tube of oil paint? Let's see if somebody can actually get that tonight. If you do, you get an interesting modelling company badge. So there's competition there tonight. So the first one to actually call out the year I bought that tube of. This
will interest you, John. This will interest you.
Yeah, go on.
Right. This is my oil brusher,
and it says Starship. Ah, there you go then. Yeah. Oh, we've got some guesses coming up here. Right, here we go. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. We have Simon Lewis says 1982. No. Peter Berg says 1982. No. Andy Brennan says 1993. No. Yohav says 2000. No. Dave Fleming says 1991. We've got a few more guesses. 1990. Stan Codling says 1990. Damien Mullen says 1991. Do you know what? I'm going to put you all out in misery because you're all there typing away.
Of course you
would. The first person to get it right tonight was, in fact, Mr. David Hansen in the United States of America, and he guessed correctly at 1987. Okay, now it gives you an idea of how long does a tube of oil paint last. That tube of oil paint is 34 years old. Apart from the fact that I have to occasionally just give the top a clean with some lacquer thinner, but
I have to say, I go through it. I mean, that's still not massively quick, but that tube there of Payne's Grey, that's probably only about 4 years old.
Okay.
So I do use quite, but you can see it varies. They were both bought at the same time. So Payne's Grey is the core of what I use, with some raw umber as well. So the raw umber is getting low, but not as low as the Payne's Grey. And the only other color I tend to use a lot of the time is the titanium white, just to shift the Payne's Grey or raw umber a little bit if it's going on to a lighter finish. But as you can see, that was bought at the same time and that's still nearly full. But I maintain that if you've got those three paints, if you've got those 3 tubes of oil paint, you're good for about 95%. You are good for about 95% of the washes you'll ever need.
This one is actually quite relatively recent. This one is about 1992. And finally, here we go. Winsor & Newton oil color ivory black. That one, 1990. But
How do you know the dates?
Sorry?
How do you know the dates?
Have you met me?
Well, it's just a question
Do
because
you
you
not
seem
know?
very
Do you not
specific.
know the how there are when I buy things? Always the date imprints on me, and I can tell you, I got the Winsor and Newton. The raw umber was from that was from Bristol Fine Art at the top of Park Street. The black was from an art shop in Bath, and the white was from Bristol Fine Art Park Street.
Okay.
Yeah. I couldn't tell you what I had for tea yesterday, but I can tell you when I bought a tube of oil paint. But I think I think that what that proves is that the oil paints go on forever, don't they?
Yeah,
Really,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the only reason I've had to replace oil paints is because I've either used the tube up, which doesn't happen very often, or I haven't used it for so long that the top has got stuck on, and I've damaged the tube removing the top. They're the only reason that I've ever had to replace tubes. And then I kind of use the Starship Filth as the other one that I use for quite a lot of stuff like weathering on the underside of drop tanks and things like that, because it makes a really good muddy sort of finish.
Color.
Eh?
It's my favorite weathering color.
Yeah, it's a great color. It is a great color. But that just shows that for all the for all these Abteilung doing 700 different shades of grey and all the rest of it, if you've got those 3 tubes of paint, you're pretty good for nearly everything.
Yeah, I do like my Abteilung oil paints, but
Steve Moore's asking there, does anyone still use pastel sticks and grate off powder? No, I have to say I have a lot of pastels here, but I avoid them like the plague. They're just too messy.
You don't like pigments anyway, do you?
I've never liked pigments. I don't like pigments and
I think I need to teach you how to use pigments properly.
I can use them. I don't like using them. There's a difference. I can use pigments just fine, John. I just don't like or enjoy using them. It's like acrylic paints.
Well, here's the thing. Peter says oil paints can get passed down through families for generations. It's funny he says that because, bear with me a second. He says, getting up, try not to tip his microphone over the floor and all that kind of malarkey. Whoops, a daisy. Because here, here we go. We have here containing all my Abteilung oil paints. This is my father's old oil painting box, and if you look on the inside of the lid, you can see my father's formulas for mixing colours. So when I wanted a box to put my Abteilung oil paints in, because I've got about 30 odd tubes here, which I occasionally use, is all the gear, no idea. I thought I'd get there first. I'm looking for a box, and I found that one. I thought, well, that's perfect, because that's just, but
that's what I mean about having 30 odd tubes of Abteilung. And I've got quite a few tubes of Abteilung. I've got a lot of other Winsor and Newton other colours, sepias, and let's get a basic red, let's get a basic blue, and all the rest of it. And I just never touch them.
Are you implying that somehow I'm the kind of person who just amasses lots of paint for the fun of it?
Looks behind me at the that's
fair. That's a fair comment. I'll let you have that one.
Well, it's no different.
Do you know what? Tonight, I wasn't joking when I put that post up that ICM are doing those paints for the Lafley V15, the comedy clown French tractor thing. That I'm not kidding. I'm going to buy that set because I want to try the paints out anyway. But I thought that would be fun to also, to use them with the, with the kit as well when it turns up. Mike Williams says Starship Filth and Dust oil brushes, along with Payne's Grey and Burnt Umber oils, are pretty much my exclusive weathering paints these days. Thinned or neat, they're so versatile. Yep. Yeah. Won't disagree with that.
Yeah. You always go back to you find a few basics, and the repeated theme here is clearly Winsor and Newton, Burnt Umber, and Payne's Grey, isn't it? That's the repeated theme. You can use other paints to shift them if you want. It's like I made them. I made the mixture slightly paler for the underside of the Mirage there, which is still quite obtrusive, I think, but not too bad. But it was, you know, it was just the neat mix for the top side. So yeah, you just come back to a few basic tools. I think in a lot of ways it's the same with modeling in general, isn't it? We all use a few basic tools. You know,
I like mixing the dust with the starship filth, or starship filth as I've got here. But I like mixing the dust in there, and that then gives you a varying set of tones. I mean, what have I got here? I've got the flesh tones from oil brushes, but I've not quite got on with them. And I've also got their dark brown, which is, you know, fairly useful. And I've got a green, but I've yet to really kind of experiment and really, you know, see what you can do with the other colours. But I think I was a bit like you when I first saw those oil brushes kind of promoed. I just thought, yeah, they're just kind of like eyeliner, aren't they? And no, they work slightly differently to oils when it comes to how you can polish them and blend them when they go dry. They have like.
But that said, I still think what we're talking about here points to the one essential truth is that every year scads and scads of different products are released into the modeling sort of environment. And we all get them. We all experiment. You know, we all get them and experiment with them, and then within months, most of them, 95% of them, will be sidelined, and we're back to using the stuff that we. And sort of every few years, something will come along that actually does properly revolutionize your process. I'm looking at you, disc by cutters.
I'm looking at you. You're obviously you with the VMS varnish.
Yeah. You know, I've been searching for ever since from about 2012, 2013, when Vallejo changed the formula of their mat, which was brilliant before that. They changed the formula and it just became pretty awful. And I spent the next 6 or 7 years hunting for a decent flat finish. And I went through everything, and I was getting Galeria to work, which is, you know, it was, you know, I could get it. I tamed it eventually. I had a couple of sort of misfires with it and a couple of bad results, but I did get it tamed eventually. But then, you know, last year VMS came along, and the first time I sprayed it, I just went, wow, that's it.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. And you know, you found something, but before that, I would say it was the disc by cutters.
Yeah. Paul Sykes says, I use Tamiya or Vallejo buff for weathering my FE, starting thin, then adding more paint as I go along. Yeah, buff. Actually, that's a good one, actually, because I do find that when it comes to doing things, if I want to shift the tones of Panzer Grey and Olive Drab, I do find either Deck Tan or buff from the Tamiya range is great, because they lighten them, but they don't kind of like throw them off. Whereas if you start adding white to both, no, it doesn't.
Yeah,
work.
it turns into. I mean, certainly Olive Drab just turns into a horrible grey sort of mess. Yeah.
And Mike Reeves says,
I was just about to point that one out. Yeah, Mike's exactly right. We all do the same, Mike.
Yeah.
We all do the same. You know, we buy all these old. I mean, it was only a couple of years ago. I loaded all of my Vallejo Model Air into bags, and I can't remember if I threw them away or if Tim Maunder might have had them off for me.
I think, yeah, I've done that with some of my Vallejo paints. I just say, Tim, do you want them? And he's like, oh, yes, please. So that's it. That's all done.
Yeah,
so,
yes, please. I'll have them. Well, there you go, Tim. Have 200 pounds worth.
Nothing gets wasted.
Okay, Simon Lewis there.
Yeah.
What did you use to thin Galeria with, and what ratio? Eventually, Simon, I ended up using neat isopropyl alcohol to thin it. 99% isopropyl alcohol, and I had this sort of problem over the weekend with some comments on my YouTube. When people ask about ratios, it's like I don't really like to get too involved in it. Until it sprays is my, you know, until it sprays cleanly through the airbrush. So it might be 50-50, it might be more. And then, you know, people ask what what pressure are you using? Well, most of us have MAC valves now on our airbrushes, which we use to adjust pressure, so we can't actually tell you what the pressure is.
Martin Kovac gets this all the time on his videos. Is people saying, "What pressure are you spraying at? What's your thinning ratios?" And he how he does his laugh. He says, "I honestly don't know." And I think he's not being he's being honest.
No, he's not being facetious.
Martin is one of those modelers who experiments.
Yeah.
And if he finds something that works, then that's fine. And I think we've had this discussion before about, are people too risk averse? They go out and buy something. Tell me how to use it. Find out for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this discussion before. People asking, does such and such a thing work? Does such and such? Well, if you've got the products, try it and let us know. Give it a go. So sorry to be sorry about that, Simon. I'm that segue into having a rant about ratios. Honestly, it depends on the pressure and what needle you've got in your airbrush. 50-50 is yeah, exactly. 50-50 is a good place to start. Yeah. If it doesn't spray and atomize properly, either thin it some more or turn the pressure up. I'd probably go towards thinning it some more, also don't apply mist coats.
No. And also, do you when you're putting it, I mean, if you're mixing it in the cup, do you put thinner in first, then paint?
Honestly, I whichever. Generally speaking, I'll put the paint in first and then the thinner.
Okay.
Because honestly, John, it doesn't really matter, because the first thing I do before I spray anything is do that to clear the airbrush through anyway. Before to get so people saying, oh, do you just get thick paint at the start of you get thick paint to start spraying and it messes up your finish. Well, no, because you clear that out onto a piece of tissue or something first, and then the paint that you've mixed starts coming through. So I generally I'll add the paint first if I'm mixing in a cup and then the thinner. So yeah, Stephen Pryor saying that looks about right. Yeah, thin to the consistency of semi-skimmed milk.
Yeah, no, it is. But this, like I say, this is one of those things that I always, I've always jokingly said, I don't look to see what's happening when I'm spraying. I'm actually listening to what the airbrush is telling me.
Yes, yeah, exactly that.
And so, when it's kind of going like that, it's far too thick. I'm like you. I actually tend to go 60% thinner, 40% paint, and then work outwards from there. Now, I was just going to say, if you remember, this is going back 10 years or so ago. Do you remember when we were trying to get some of those? Were they Vallejo or they were AK?
Model Air, wasn't it? Vallejo Model Air.
Something like that, but it was like a NATO set that they did, and we were trying to get it to work and we couldn't. And in the end, you found the solution. The solution was to crank the pressure up on the compressor.
Yeah. Then
they'd spray. So again, it's one of those things that you can't go into this with set kind of calculations and formula with you literally you have to do it on a paint by paint, sometimes a color by color basis, because you can have two colors from the same paint range, but they will require slightly different thinning.
Browns can be notoriously difficult to spray.
Yeah.
Brown is, but it was like spraying with this the other day, doing tests with this. It just performs so completely differently to any of the paints I'd normally use that I was so thrown by it. And then something that doesn't happen when I'm using my normal paints is eventually you get tip build up on the actual needle itself of acrylic paint, and your airbrush will actually start whistling. You can actually hear it whistle, and then you go, this isn't working right, this isn't spraying right, and you have to go back and start, going through your cleaning regime. If that happens, if I get any kind of problem with spraying a solvent, a lacquer, I just pull the needle back and clear the airbrush, and that clears the needle and everything. You barely ever have to touch, clean the needle manually. Just spraying the airbrush through will do it.
Dave Mummery says, as a tip, any unused thin paint, as I tip any unused thin paint back into the jar and use a MAC valve, I neither know the thinning ratio nor air pressure. By the time I get to the bottom of a pot of primer, it's practically airbrush only. And yeah, that's something I do. This is one of the joys of using
Well, one of the
lacquer
joys of
thinners these days.
using lacquers is that you can put stuff back into the pot. You couldn't do that with enamels because it'll just it immediately upsets it, and you know that'll be a solid skin over that in weeks.
And Mike Green says similarly, I fill every bottle of Mr. Colour and Guernsey Mr. Colour thinner.
If you have Mr. Colour, if you use Mr. Colour, you need that in your life as well.
Is that the replenisher?
That's the replenisher.
Yeah, I fill every bottle of Mr. Colour with Guns Mr. Colour thinner. The moment the minuet, I open the bottle. Sorry, I've been struggling. I've been doing ghost stories all week, and honestly, they're worse when I'm sober. So
this stuff, if nobody's ever used it with Mr. Colour,
uh-huh.
If you've got Mr. Colour, if you've got a jar of Mr. Colour, this stuff here, Mr. Colour replenisher. If you've got a jar of Mr. Colour that is actually so completely dry that it's just a small cake of pigment on the bottom of the bottle, if you throw some of that in and walk away and leave it for 24 hours, you will have a new pot of paint. It absolutely, Mike. It's not thinner. It's thinner, but it's mixed with all the other resins and stuff that go into making Mr. Colour paint. So it's not for thinning it back. But if, like I say, if you've had a jar of paint, and I've had a jar of Mr. Colour that's been so completely dry, it's just a cracked cake, like a desert in the bottom. And I've thrown some of that in, walked away for 24 hours, come back, given it a stir, and it's a fresh pot of paint.
Yeah, Mike. Well, Mike Williams does ask, "What is Mr. Replenisher?"
That's
Mike,
what I'm saying.
It's obviously something you need to have in your in your arsenal of stuff.
Yeah,
so
it's something you need in your life, Mike, because it will. It utterly. And I know Mike was saying there he fills Mr. Colour with Guns Mr. Colour thinner the minute I open the bottle. That works as well. But if I open a pot of Mr. Colour that I've had for a few years, and it's looking a little bit thick in the bottom or something, just throw a bit of that in. Give it a stir.
I can remember who told me to go out and buy some Mr. Replenisher.
It was me.
It was you, yeah. Similarly, you told me to go out and buy the Mr. Colour Rapid thinner as well.
Yeah.
Which now this is. I know. I think we're both passing it across to each other today. This is the weird thing, is that I always thought that for doing like mottling, that you would want to use a thinner with a retardant in there. But you actually think that Mr. Colour Rapid thinner is better for mottling.
Yes, the thing is, because you can use the Mr. Colour Rapid, you can thin stuff back extremely highly to sort of 95, 96%, but it flashes off really quickly as well. So you can build up very, very quickly with extremely thin paint. If you use Mr. Colour, Mr. Colour thinner isn't too bad. Mr. Colour leveling thinner, you then have to wait that little bit longer for that thinner to flash off before you can go back and. Whereas the Mr. Colour Rapid, and also it's the reason it's so hot as well, so it bites a bit better, and you don't tend to get any kind of nozzle build up with it. And it's just, and the other thing is these paints were originally invented or made for the first I'm looking behind me at my rack of many thinners, but the first people to bring out a rapid type thinner were Gianotis, I don't know how you pronounce it. They did a product called Mr. Metal Thinner, and it's basically rapid thinner, and I use the two interchangeably because I've still got some bottles from back when I could order from Japan, order solvents from Japan. But if you've never tried thinning metal paints with the rapid thinner or the Mr. Metal Master, I think, Metal Master, Gianotti's called it, try that, because you'll be amazed, because it flashes off so quickly that the pigment or the paint, the metallic flake in metallic paint, doesn't get a chance to settle. So it maintains this brilliant, really, really brilliant, nice metal finish that looks absolutely closer to metallic than anything that isn't actually metal as I've ever seen. So that was what it was originally invented for, and that's what I used it for years. And like I say, that the Mirage here, those tanks were done with LP11. You can see it's had some misting and stuff and some splatter coats over them, but that's gloss black base coat, and then Tamiya's LP11 thinned with a rapid thinner, and you can see the kind of finish it gives you.
I think what we'll have to do at some stage is we will do an evening, an hour long show where we're actually talking about talk about silver paints, metallic paints. I think we can fill an hour with that quite easily. And Damien Mullen says, boys, you're costing us a fortune. It's costing you a fortune. It's costing me a fortune.
Yeah, where do you think we didn't get given all this stuff?
No, I mean, it cost me a fortune just on tonight is just going out and buying some VMS varnish. So,
yeah, you can share. You can share the pain.
No,
you can share the pain.
Yeah. Well, here we go. This is a nice, beautiful segue here, Michael. Thank you. He says demo at the Telford weekend. Well, it's not going to be the Telford weekend. I think he means our festival. But yeah, I think that's something that you could be doing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably a good discussion on how, you know, we deal with metal finishes and stuff, you know, from those of us who still prefer to paint right through to the genius of Jen using foil. You know, there are many ways to get metal finishes, but people I find perhaps maybe people like us are the outliers in that we're very experimental. We see a new product and we jump on it. We tend to be very early adopters of new product to try it out, and then sort of, you know, sometimes I see, you know, to me now people still saying, "What's VMS varnish? Where do you get it?" I'm like, sorry, how is this not common knowledge? But just because we've been jumping on the, you know, I jump on it really quickly. It just becomes a normal part of my arsenal, and I kind of just mention it in passing as, yeah, well, obviously it's VMS. What else would you be using?
Do you know what? The only thing I'm actually ahead of you on at the moment are the SMS paints.
Yes. Yes. I have yet to try the SMS paints. On the other hand, I have now tried them, which we've been talking about for quite a while. You know, how are the new gen, how are the third gen acrylics going to match up or perform? And
no,
it's like
talking of the weekend.
I did brush paint them this.
Talking of the weekend, we've now got a rough itinerary sketched out here. So essentially, kicking off at 10 o'clock in the morning, we'll have the HQ and intro, and we'll just be kind of like, you know, filling you in and etc. 10:15, 11:15 modelling demonstration. We haven't actually got any, we haven't put names to modelling demonstrations for the simple reason that we're being quite flexible as to who's available and who isn't. Bearing in mind this year compared to last year, people couldn't go anywhere, so we had a captive audience of people to do demos, whereas this year obviously things are a bit lighter, so we're trying to kind of like get fit people in with their busy weekend schedule. So 11:15, 11:30 chat, and then 11:30 to 12:30 another demo, 12:45 HQ and chat, 12:45 to 13:45 demo, then there'll be an intermission. And then, like I say, 2:30 to 2:45 HQ. Then we're doing a pre-record tomorrow night. Actually, we're talking to Kim Smith, who she worked for ILM and various movie making companies. She's worked on so many things. She worked on Hunt for Red October, which is one of the things that we're going to be talking about. She's worked on the Star Trek films. She's even worked on the restoration of the original Enterprise model for the Smithsonian. But honestly, Kim is going to be one of those people that we're going to try and do a series of interviews with her, because dream job, that's all I can say. Then we're going to have a bit of HQ and chat, then one more demo, and then for the last half hour, we'll just have a lot like we're doing now. we'll just have a kind of like a chat-to-chat facey thing. Then pretty much the same on the Sunday. HQ, then a demo, back to the HQ again. So this is so we can kind of like just field correspondence and stuff and whatever. Then we're going to have an in-conversation, which we're still trying to line up, so we don't want to kind of blow that one at the moment. Then back to the studio, then a demo, intermission, so you can go off and have some tea and cake. Then we're back. Then in the afternoon, going to be talking to Ian Hartup. I think we're talking about AMT cars, isn't that right, Ian? And then and then a bit more chat. Then another demo, and then for the final kind of like half hour, it's going to be a bit like this. It's just going to be chatty, facey stuff. So, and it's not clashing with Telford, which is what people asked us not to do. So we're not doing it that way.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, I think it's fair to say it's a bit more freeform this year. People have kind of got lives back, so there's kind of a degree of busy going on.
Here we are.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, I for the first part of Saturday morning I won't be available because I'll be working, you know, and then after from 11:30 on, I'll be available for anything that's needed. Because people just, you know, lives are busier this year than they were.
It is, and I think, like I say, it is. I think we're all aware at the moment that we're all in positions where suddenly we may need to shift things on the day. So you know, so that we, you know, somebody might suddenly go, oh, can't do that one, but I can do this afternoon because of, you know, family commitments and whatever. So we're being quite flexible. I'm doing demos this year because I didn't do. That's the weird thing. Last year's one, I didn't do any modelling demos, so I'm afraid this year you're going with me doing modelling demos.
I see Dougal McWoogle there asking, is it a continuous stream or will we have to rejoin? I think it's going to be just, you've got long enough that it can be a continuous stream and we can just drop in and out.
Yeah,
you know, you'll have a test card.
Yeah, no, it is a continuous. It is a continuous stream from 10 o'clock until 1:45 to 2 in the afternoon. Then there is an intermission where it's off air, so there won't be anything at all. There won't be a test card. It will just be that you won't find anything. And then starting off from 2:30 through till 5:30, it is just going to be solid live again. So you will, if you tune in, you'll find something. Everything will be available on catch up anyway. Regrettably, everything will be available on catch up as well. So
so whether you like it or not. Just going back a couple of posts, Ian's saying about SMS, and then Craig said SMS is a new Mr. Paint. I haven't tried them. I've heard good things, but like we were discussing the other night, the problem is there's some really odd emissions, isn't there?
Yes,
there's some really odd emissions that kind of like I say, I'm sure that when I looked at the list, one of the Southeast Asia camouflage colours wasn't in the range. But the other two were, and it's like, well, if I can't get all three colours in the range, I'm not going to use them at all. I'm going to go
saying this. I had this with olive drab, and it's like, great, just pick up the neutral grey. No neutral grey. There is a dark earth. Great. Then there's going to be an RF dark green. There isn't an RF dark green. So it's. But the thing is, I think the idea is that there are generic colours that kind of cross over to that, but it's
that's kind of that. Then we're into the whole thing where multiple manufacturers have marketed RF dark green and just rebottled 34079, which is forest green, which is a completely different color, but people have gone, oh, it's close enough.
Andrew Hill says, so when can I pencil you in for the in-store painting demo?
Andrew, we will talk about it because we're all more than happy to. If you set up a table in the corner, and we're more than happy to do in-store demos, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And Rob Monfils makes a very good point. He says Frome Model Centre are bringing the SMS range to Scale Model World, and Frome Model Centre are the UK distributors, I do believe.
Yes.
And if you head over to, oops, Daisy, let's try it again. If you head over to www.fromemodelcentre.com, you can have a look. You can order from them, but certainly you can go online and find the SMS range. I think they're beautiful paints. It's like I say, fantastic paints. They just need a bit like the Tamiya lacquer range. Is that they're brilliant paints? Just need to have a few more specific.
But there's some really obvious emissions in the range that kind of, and like I say, if I can't get all of the colours for a given scheme in one range, I'll go to a range where I can.
Yeah.
And what was I? Yeah, Ian there, Ian Hartup saying 34079 is what Hataka gives you in the RAF World War II sets. Yeah, and it's close, Ian, but it's I if I'm paying enthusiast modeler prices for enthusiast level paint, I want them to be formulated accurately, not just a near enough.
Andrew Hills asks, how big a table would you like?
Well, normally it's just like a normal, well,
trestle
what,
table,
5 foot, something like that.
Yeah, trestle table, a trestle table.
Yeah,
I
like something we can lean on.
Say, 21st of November. Actually, I have noticed. I did send you a message, but you probably didn't get it because of Messenger playing up today. It is actually on the Sunday. It is actually the Bristol Model Soldier Society model show in Nailsea, which I might actually go to on the basis that it is literally 5 minutes over the hill from here.
Yeah.
If I walk in and I think, oh no, don't like this, I can just go straight back out and come home again. So
yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is that we're still a little bit nervous about this sort of thing. I went to a model show the other week and it was great. You know, it was enjoyable. But again, there wasn't a lot of sort of isolating or distancing going on. That's
Callum Gibson says they have the RAF dark green labelled as forest green in their RAF bomber set and dark green, but I think they're off.
Yeah, well, if it's an accurate 34079, it's going to be an inaccurate RAF dark green. It's as simple as that. It's you know, they are distinctly different colours.
Yeah.
And you know, so some, you know, people like Mr. Colour have formulated, you know, their 34079 and their RAF dark green are significantly different in that they're both within sort of like the tolerance of accuracy for those particular colours, as far as I'm concerned, but they are distinctly different. I wouldn't use 34079 as dark green, or I wouldn't use dark green for 34079. But paint manufacturers, various paint manufacturers, are happy to sort of do that and give you that as the only option. It's not good enough. It's not good enough.
Not good enough. It's not good enough. Cat Loudboy says, evening all, looking forward to the weekend shows. Thank you, Cat. That's very kind of you. And Ian Hart says, exactly, I had to switch to the Mr. Colour option. Right, okay. Well, we've now caught up with ourselves because we've now done the full hour. So, any other business?
Yes, I spent a lot of money. Well, not a lot of money, but this week I've talking to people talking about us costing them money. I saw this week's, you know, Paul Budzick's scale model workshop on the Proxon range of electric drills and stuff. And I've probably gone out and ordered a new Proxon electric drill, pen sander, and speed variable transformer.
Well,
I've been looking at them for a long time. And I looked at his review on them, and I just went, "Yeah, I need that in my life." So I immediately went and transferred a little bit of savings and ordered, you know, those 3 items.
Yeah, Rob Monfee is going to end up costing me money this week because last week he bought some of these cutting mats from Infiny that have grooves cut in them to cut shapes and things, and one of them's like a series of arcs and curves. And,
yeah, I think my brother's got Rory's got that. He's got a couple of those sheets.
And I said, "Where'd you get them from?" And he said, "Premium Hobbies in Western." So, thanks, Rob.
Well, you know, this is what we're in the hobby for.
Actually, serious face for a moment is the one that's got all the curves and everything. Actually, would make my life easier when it comes to doing shaped decal designs, because if I can actually roughly get a shape, you know, get a piece cut to tape first, which I'm then laying over a model to get, especially things like noses and things like that, where you actually have to do the shape. If I can actually do that and get the shape cut first, it will speed up my life considerably. So Clint Dodd says, make sure you get the foot pedal.
Yeah, I haven't got the foot pedal just yet, but I will at some point. I mean, I've been using my main electric tool for quite a long time has been this Dremel, which is beautifully, you know, it's a Dremel, so it's, you know, it's a quality item.
Yeah.
But the minimum speed is 5,000 RPM, which is just too high for plastic in most cases. You just tend to burn straight through anything, so you have to do a very, you know, you're pecking at stuff rather than actually machining stuff away. So you can hear that even though.
Oh dear, that sounds like, oh no.
Then you go up to.
Oh.
So yeah, I mean, it's a beautifully made bit of kit, but it's simply too much. Whereas obviously with the Proxon, with the speed control, you'll be able to go down to hundreds or maybe 1,000 RPM is going to be fine for most plastic work.
Yeah, thanks for that, Drew. You've just reminded me. I've got dental checkup tomorrow.
I had a hygienist appointment on Monday and had the dentist for the actual checkup today, actually. So yeah, hopefully, Clint, hopefully you're right. It's the Proxon will be much better for what we do. I saw Paul Budzik reviews on them and went, yeah, I've been looking at them for a while. Let's just pull the trigger on that. So, and the pen sander, I've looked at a couple of reviews on the pen sanders and they look fantastic. They look like they're going to really be a time saver. So, and that was only about 35 quid for the pen sander.
Some people are asking where are we getting the VMS from? We're getting the VMS from www.scalemodel.shop.co.uk.
I have also ordered it direct from Poland.
Okay.
But that was before Brexit, so I haven't ordered it since Brexit came in, so I don't know and that's not a political, that's just saying I haven't ordered since, so I don't know how it's going to work now. It might work, it might not.
And whilst we're at it, we're just going to say a big hello to people who have supported this show with stuff this year, and that includes anticsonline.uk and jadvanracingmodels.com. So a big thank you to everybody there. I think that's about it, really. I think the next time we convene will be the weekend and get this show on the road. I'm actually looking forward to it for the simple reason that because I really haven't been doing much modeling because I've just not been in the mood for it, because I will be doing demos and I'll be getting on with things in here, whilst other people are getting on with things. The thing I am especially looking forward to doing is cracking this £10 worth of badness and putting this into action, building the Airfix beach buggy. And that what my contribution will be, I am stripping everything back to basics. This is going to be building a kit with real budget stuff, and it's I know we tend to aim this at the enthusiast thing because we are enthusiasts, but I do want to have an element of the weekend where we are taking it right back to have you ever built a model before?
Yeah.
No, watch this. Yeah. So on that note, just want to say thank you to Drew for tuning in tonight. Thank you to everybody who turned up for the second bite of the cherry after tonight's technical.
Got there in the end. We got there in the end.
So we'll be back, 10 o'clock Saturday morning for another Festival of Modelling. So until then, it just remains for us to say thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay out of trouble.
Take care, all.
We'll see you at the weekend.
See you at the weekend.
Bye.